trying to be healthy. I wake up in the morning, go for a run, happy, slightly more than content. And I thought I got electrocuted, and I literally dropped to the ground going, and I looked at my leg, and there's this big ass wasp on there just going crazy on my leg. And I'm like, 6:30 in the morning, I'm just minding my own business. Nope. Now my leg's all swollen up.
Yeah.
Nope, not happy.
Not content.
I saw a video the other day that was like, he's like, every morning I wake up and run. And he said, you know why I run? He said, it's not because I like it. He said, because after I get done with my run, I think there's no way my day can get any worse than it is now.
That's the old Mark Twain.
Exactly.
That's funny.
That's fun.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 29 of the Slightly Serious Sign podcast. This one is actually sponsored by Wensco because this episode is going to come out kind of the beginning of September. Coming up very shortly, if you're just hearing this around launch date, is our open houses. So to start, it's in a different order this year, so this is where it gets confusing. So Cleveland, Detroit, Grand Rapids, September 24, 25, 26, 25, 26, 27 in that week somewhere.
Yep.
And then October 10th and 11th in Iowa and Chicago. So
Huge event.
if you have never been, please come because they are a great time. We get a lot of people to show up. We had record amount of people last year show up, and everyone that comes thinks, wow, this is awesome. We had 41 vendors come last year, I think, total. So for you guys, if you're doing any local shows, this is going to be just as good, if not better, for you because it's all the people that Wensco has already. So you're probably buying from most of them, and you're not going to get randoms in there. So
And the food's really good, usually.
We do. We mess up the food one time, and that guy's no longer allowed to order food, so don't worry about it. But we take the food pretty serious, so if you mess it up, you don't get to order it again. So tacos, barbecue. We had fried chicken in Kentucky, which makes sense. And everything is good. So Rick's making hand motions at me. I'm supposed to know what we're talking about. Oh, and we have prizes.
That's right.
So this year we have, I should have had one because I did actually have one.
Where's the Yeti?
We have a Yeti cooler and a Blackstone grill as prizes, as well as gift cards, which we always do gift cards. And then there is a $500 Wensco credit giveaway as well. So
Material credit.
Can suppliers win?
Can suppliers win?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you pay enough money, you can win. I'm just kidding. That's a joke.
Members.
That's a joke. Okay, if you're coming, it's a joke.
No, we do want to thank all the vendors that do come in and set up a table, talk to the customers, but they also offer gift cards for us to give away, and we really appreciate that for customers that come in that can win door prizes as we're talking about. But we're not trying to make it sound like you just really need to show up, because if you have a situation that you're having a product failure or have questions about anything, equipment, materials, the vendors that you're buying from us now are here. This is the perfect opportunity to come and chat and learn about new things that are coming out, new products. They'll have new products on their tables. Usually I'm walking around going, hey, how come I didn't hear about this one? I could grab a sample, start talking about it, start learning it. It's a great learning environment, as well as not only, like we talk about, good food, but you get to meet even your competition, how friendly. You could even, talk to them about what works, what doesn't work. They're not going to give you all the secrets, but it's a good atmosphere to come and enjoy a good day of learning and eating and enjoying and having fun, actually.
I'm so happy Domingo did that, so now I don't have to record a Wensco open house promotion video later. It's awesome.
And another thing I can add is we do have popcorn.
Yes.
And it goes really quick.
Yep. Donuts, popcorn, drinks, lunch, everything you could possibly want in a day. So please come. That's a good time. And all the prizes are actually from the vendors. So the cooler and the grill are all sponsored. Vendors sponsor all of those. The Wensco credit is the only one that we do ourselves, to be fair.
Correct.
But we just want you to come. We want you to meet all of them, see everything that we have available. There's probably something you didn't know that we carried, and if you come, you'll know about it. So please come. There's something new every year. So all the equipment will be running. So anything you want to see should be there, hopefully. And you'll be able to see it all. So
all right, let's get to our guests.
please come. So yeah, I'm glad you got to sit through 4 minutes of our Wensco open house ad. So
It was riveting.
So we'll just go through, because what I wanted to do, we just talked about this, so I'll say it, because for people that have come to the open houses before, what they've seen on the table when they saw you was multicam on the table. So I'm going to let you do the intro as to who you are, where you work for, and why your shirt has a different name.
All that stuff.
Sure. Before I answer that, actually, I want to comment on what you were just talking about. As a vendor, the open houses have been awesome. Not only for us because of the business that's generated from it, and for you obviously, but for the customers. The face time that you get with the customers and the amount of knowledge you're able to give them. They're busy in their days. It's really hard to get enough time. I mean, some of them were customers I have had for a long time. I've tried to engage them on new machines or different processes. And like, I'm going to get to it. Once they realized that you guys offer our products, it was now a team effort where they felt like, man, I know these guys, I trust these guys. Next thing you know, I'm getting a call a week later, they're coming in for a demo. It's been a great thing. We look forward to it every year. We help give for the prizes as well. So I usually try to just trade with the guy near me, another vendor, but they don't always like that. I don't know. Like, hey, I'll give you a $50 gift card if you give me that Blackstone grill.
Ratio.
Well, first of all, introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. My name is Jamie Venlet. I am with Specialty Machinery, formerly known as Multicam Great Lakes. I started actually in this industry almost 30 years ago as a CNC router operator. Hired and fired from several companies during that time, but gained a lot of knowledge about that. Kind of stumbled into Multicam Great Lakes. Thinking they might be somebody that was looking for an operator. Turns out they sell machines, and said, do you ever thought about being a technician and traveling? Like, I've never left my neighborhood. I don't know if that'd be a good idea. Well, I wind up becoming a service technician, got pretty good at it. Did that for a number of years, then moved in to the role of service manager, began building a team. Then moved into sales and did really well with that. And now I'm currently vice president. I still do sales as well because it's kind of hard to let it go. But during that time, we still offer multicam. I don't mean to say it as if we left that. We simply changed the name. Multicam had decided to eliminate a lot of their products. And on top of that, just made some different changes that didn't make it so we could be only multicam anymore. So with that, we went and created our own product, more of an entry level, lower profit, that too, lower cost, lower price point. It's called Specialty Cutting Systems. We're having them built overseas for us to our spec. It's just down and dirty. Hey, this gets you into the game. Then we also became the North American distributors for Kimla, which is a very high-end 5-axis, 4-axis, high-speed, just tons of high-octane type stuff. Got to go to Poland, left the country, stopped in Germany at the end of September for the last day of Oktoberfest. News to me, didn't know Oktoberfest wasn't in October. Learned that, but then got to go to Poland, signed with them, and it's all going great. That's us in a nutshell.
So pretty much now, besides just carrying multicam, you're kind of expanding into not just multicam.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's giving you kind of access to multicam was kind of in your portfolio. Now they would be like in the middle, correct? Is what that sounds like?
Depending on the scenario, it's kind of like the multicam makes a great product. It fits the majority of people, but there's some scenarios where a customer wants to do something a little more intense than the standard type stuff, or they're simply looking for the fastest machining that they can buy, and they're at a higher price point. So that works for them. But it's really about the right tool for the right job. I really don't I don't subscribe to the good, better, best necessarily with it. It's really just about the right tool. That's kind of how we approach it.
So more what you're saying on the router side of things is it's not like this is better than the other option. It's more like, okay, for what you need, this does what you need, right? Like, because I think what we run into when we talked with Josh from X Edge. You guys are super familiar with them, obviously. So when we talked with him, he was saying like, yeah, sometimes it's like there's no more speed that you're going to get out of this, right? So on a lower cost machine and a higher cost machine, if you're routing this specific product, there's very little benefit, right, to getting higher and higher end on there. Yeah. But sometimes, depending on what you need, that's when higher end becomes necessary. Is that more what it's like?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And a lot of times, and there is different levels of quality amongst them within the series, within them with some overlap. But it really comes down to like trying to compare a monster truck to a race car. It's not that one is better than the other. It's what are you trying to do? And that's, as a salesman that was a former technician, one of the things that has worked well for me, and mainly because I know no other way, is I start at the end. What are you trying to accomplish? And often customers don't really realize what it is they want until you help suss that out. They come and say, well, I'm looking for something that's X amount of inches per minute. I want to do this, I want to do that. Or they might even say, I need a 5-axis machine. And, well, show me what you're doing. What are we doing? And then if you can carefully show them that maybe the solution you're looking for isn't exactly the proper solution for you. Let me show you what the end results are. At the end of the day, what are you doing this for? Well, almost all of us, including all of our customers, are doing this to put the most amount of money in their pocket and grow their business. Put the best name out there, create the best product. So let me provide a solution or at least propose a solution that achieves that.
So with somebody looking at, say, their first router, like we were just talking about, what are the questions you're going to ask them to make sure that they're buying the right equipment?
Are you broke? What's
your budget?
Literally had a customer.
Used car sales guy.
Yeah.
What would you like as your monthly payment?
Yeah, I hate the budget question, but sometimes you're like, we had a customer once brought his son. We went through all the songs and dances of cutting parts for him, demos, the whole works. And submit him to credit. He says, this is what I want. Yep, we're buying it. Do it right away. Submit him into credit. And financing department calls us and says, he's in foreclosure. He's bankrupt. He's filed Chapter 11. Like, I don't know what the guy was thinking. But,
wow.
He went through everything to do it. So it does happen. So back to your question, though, the first thing we typically ask is, what do you make? How do you do it now? What's the worst part of your day? When you're making parts and you're doing it by hand with a jigsaw, or you're outsourcing, or a lot of times I always use the old school phrase, if all you own is a hammer, everything's a nail. Some of the biggest pushback we get from customers is, oh, we do it just fine this way. I don't need that. Well, they don't often realize that that's only because that's all that you have. Sometimes that tool will open up the possibilities to something you haven't even fathomed before.
Yeah, when you say that's a good question, and this pertains to even printers. When somebody's trying to buy a printer, my question to them when I'm at trade shows, what are you outsourcing right now? Well, I do this, I do this, I do this, and then you go, you know what? That's time, right? That time's valuable. We talked about it earlier. What is it that's going to gain you to get that time back to be more productive and get you to get more sales, right? So when I look at a router, a lot of people say, well, I can just route wood. No, you could do acrylic, you could do ACM, there's so many things that you can do with a router, but it's asking the right questions. And that brings me, I don't know if we're going to go a little off tee here, but I want to ask you this question because I get it asked all the time, is those Gerber routers that are out there.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of them. And I get a lot of calls to say, what should I be upgrading or what should I be getting to replace my Sabre router that I can no longer get parts, or I have to get it on third market share, eBay or whatever.
Yep.
So what would be your recommendation for those kind of customers that are doing auto carve, are doing acrylic cutting, are doing all kinds of different things with their router?
Yeah. Typically, as soon as I hear that, my mind starts painting a picture. I don't immediately have a response of, oh, you should go this. I start leaning one way, then lean the other as the information comes in. And the first thing I think when they call and say, I have a Gerber, almost everybody loves them. They were old school tanks. They loved them. Can't get any more. But they were slow, especially compared to today. They're very slow. So the first thing I think of is either specialty cutting systems or multicam. So I know that they're most likely going to be there. They're not going to jump to a Kimla from a Gerber typically. Then the next thing I need to know is what was the machine equipped with and what do you cut? So it can lean either way. And if they say, well, I do a lot of acrylic, I really need good cut quality, nice edges, well, that's going to be a multicam. A multicam is going to produce a better cut quality if their budget falls within that. Right. So typically, I don't like to ask, again, what's your budget? What I do is like to tell them up front right away the pricing of everything. And I let them guide me, because you could be, you're the old story of the farmers in overalls with no T-shirt on walking in and buying the most expensive vehicle on the lot. You can't judge people. So I literally just try to think where it's going to be. I say, okay, if this is the end result you want, what kind of troubles do you have on the Gerber? There's often issues with vacuum hold down on the Gerber. So I say, is that an issue? So we start walking through those different things, and I paint a picture of pricing, typically as close as I can to the penny, right there on the phone in the first call, and I let them tell me, sometimes through body language and ouch and those kinds of noises, or sometimes they just say, yeah, I don't want to spend that much, I want to be here, or no, this got me to where I am now, we're doing well, I want to go as fast as I can and produce the best possible parts I can. So
there's a lot of factors that
there is,
like 404 and a 408,
yes.
4x4, 4x4, those kind of things.
I hope I answered your question there. I didn't mean to dodge it. It's
No, it's just that I want to make our listeners understand, because there's still a lot of router people that are still looking to do something, and they, when we talk about money, right, you pay for what you get.
Yeah.
And I've seen some of the people buy a cheaper product, and they call me and say, what is this? Well, I didn't recommend that. But
seen it so many
you just got to start looking at the capabilities of what a router can do and how fast you want to do it. And I guess there's more questions that they should be asking themselves, or asking the vendor or us, to figure out what's the best solution for them.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about people switching from Gerber, that obviously had a lot of different option with that. So, I mean, I see where you could say, like, okay, maybe the one they had is actually closer to more of an entry level versus the one that some of them have is more middle of the road. So we have a lot of people, we're running into this with equipment in the last, 24 months, I would say, that we're getting a lot of stuff being just imported in from China, getting rebranded under whoever's name. It's always random, and then sold to the customers as basically like a cheap whatever, right? This comes in printers, DTF, routers. We're seeing it everywhere, right? So my question with that is, how do you differentiate, say, your guys' we would call it an entry level router versus just a cheap imported router? What would be
it's a great question. It's a question I often answer. In fact, I usually answer before they ask, because we don't try to hide it. Our specialty cutting systems machine is made in China. We went through a lot of research, meeting with a lot of different potential manufacturers to arrive on the one that we did. And the reason we chose the one that we did is they actually don't live in China. They live here. They have a factory there. They built it to our specifications. There is, in China, the same thing as it is here. There's a lot of American-made junk. There's a lot of, well, I wouldn't say a lot, but there's several good manufacturers. At the end of the day, you have two parts to it. I look at it like a vehicle. You can put a really nice engine on a car. If your transmission's junk, it don't do good. It's not going to go well. If your tires are junk, you're not going to go fast. You got to have all the pieces. And for the machine, we needed the machine to be solid, built to the specifications that we required, pass all the tests that our technicians would put it through, which they did. But beyond that, you got to have somebody standing behind it. And the biggest problem with most of the Chinese junk that's coming in, and even some from here and other places, is that it's facilities that aren't structured to be able to handle that. If all you have is an online chat room for support, or you got somebody on the West Coast maybe that you wait till the time frame is right at best to get some phone support. The way we do things is everything we sell is 100% free phone and remote support for life. But on top of that, we have 10 fully stocked service vans with 11, I believe it is now, service techs, and expanding. So when I was running the service department, I had a mantra that was sales sells the first machine, service sells every machine after that. And we've lived by that, and they still use it today. And it really does It really provides the best outcome for us. Even if it was just strictly about money, that's the best way to get there. And we've not dove to the bottom and sold things super cheap, because whether you know it or not, you're always paying for service. Always. So if you're buying a super cheap machine, that just means they said, yep, we're not going to service it. So good luck with that. I had a customer when I was a service technician, our Indiana salesman called me and said, hey, there's a guy in Indiana. I know you're kind of driving by there. He bought a Chinese machine. He's having a ton of trouble. It just got it together and the Chinese disappeared. Is there any way you can just take a look at it, just help him out? Someday you might buy a machine. This was now 13 years ago. I stopped by, got his machine going, but told him this is a Band-Aid. He actually wound up calling back a couple of weeks later, bought a multicam from us, which blew us away. We didn't think he'd have the money. Tiny little place, Chinese machine. Now he has 7 machines from us, I believe it is, with 2 of them have dual heads, 4 of them have 4 heads, and he's still looking at more machines now. He's just exploded. And he'll tell you over and over again that partnering with the right company that's going to be there for you when you need them on your doorstep in less than 48 hours in a down situation, call back within an hour, all these things that produce the end results for you is the difference. Anybody can make a good machine.
We have the same with customers.
Yeah. I mean, we literally sell on service here. Is the joke. Like we try and service as much as we can possibly, because it makes it easier to control the part that we know is going to go wrong, right? If we sell a machine, we don't service it, sometimes you won't even know. Like you'll go in there, like 12 months later, and they'll be like, oh yeah, the machine's been a disaster. But like, we had no idea. Like, you never told us. Like, right, they're going with someone else for service. But we've been seeing this a lot. Like in LEDs, we see this specifically, right? Someone will come in, a company you've never heard of, they'll have this new LED, and it'll have like a 5 or a 10-year warranty, and you're like, how can you possibly offer a 5-year warranty? You've been in business 3 weeks and you're offering a 5-year warranty on your product. And it's the same with equipment, right? Like if you've never heard of this company before, even if they come out and they're like, yeah, we've got a 5-year warranty on all of our parts.
They don't plan on being here in 5 years.
How are you going to service it? You've been here 2 minutes, right? Yeah. So a lot of times I think you're right. You are paying for service, right? You're either paying for it up front or you're paying for it on the back end. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you try to pay for it on the back end and there's nobody there to service it. And that's where we run into real issues. Like, sure, if some people are willing to risk it, and we've seen a lot of people burned by it. So that's just
downtime,
something to be aware of.
Costs a lot of money.
Well, what I've seen as the service tech, I got to see a lot of unique angles from things. And one thing that I would hear all the time, I'd help with demos or whatever, and the customers always say, yeah, we're thinking we should do it. Maybe we should do it, but we do it by hand here. And well, what if something happens here and the machine's down? Well, we just go back to doing it the way we did and we'll be fine. So they think they can get away with a low cost because they say, well, we don't need immediate service. We can always do it the way we did. 6 months later, they don't even remember how to do it by hand. They're relying on this thing so much because, again, if all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail, your salesmen go out and sell differently. The jobs you accept are different. The quality that your customers expect are now different. The time that it takes to produce parts is now expected from your customers. All that changes in a 6-month period, and you can't go backwards. It's never going to happen. So now you're screaming, I need support. When you thought 6 months ago that, well, we could just jump back to doing it the old way. I'm not going to pay for all this, this high-end equipment with service, et cetera. It doesn't happen every time. 6 months later, you hear that. I hear that. And the other thing I hear is, we should have done this years ago. I hear that over and over again.
We talk about that with equipment all the time, right? When somebody you'll sometimes deal with customers for years, right? That are like, yeah, we've been looking at it, and just not pull the trigger, the trigger, and then pull the trigger and be like, I don't know what we were thinking the whole time. Like, it's unbelievable.
You hear that at shows.
Yeah.
Next year I'm budgeting it in. Yep.
Yeah. Even on like on your guys' equipment, I imagine it's even crazier, right? Because that's exactly what you're talking about, right? Right now, they're just probably, some of them are just ripping it, right? They might not even be using a jigsaw, right? They're like, we do square. That's it. All we do is square, and we just cut them every time. Yep. And then the second they get a router, everything else is an option, right? It's just like, okay, we used to do it this way, and now we just, whatever the customer wants, we do it. Before, we had to steer them. And you're 100% right. I mean, we've seen like even franchises that end up getting routers where they've been making, they make the same signs, right? We make square signs. That's our thing. That's all we do. get a router, and then everything that comes out the door changes after that. So
even within the machine, so what you mentioned earlier about the Gerbers. So, when you have a Gerber with a collet spindle, non-automatic tool changing, and the customer says, well, I never need a tool changer. I just want a collet spindle. And I'm always really cautious. I don't want to offend them, but I say, let me help show you something. What you got what I call the stinky kid in school syndrome, where it comes on slowly and you don't realize it if you're the one. Hopefully I wasn't that kid, but nobody comment, please. But if you realize after all these years, if you look back, you were doing things like choosing, I'm going to use a 3/16 tool to do this whole job because, well, it would be stupid. Why would I even consider trying to change tools all over? Well, if you have an automatic tool changer, replay that now. Well, I'm going to use an 1/8" tool for this part over here. I'm going to throw a 1/4 inch for here. I'm going to throw a 3/8, or I'm going to hog out a pocket with a 1/2 inch tool and get it done in 3 seconds instead of 35. Maybe I'll throw a V tool in there and engrave my part number that I would never consider doing because a manual tool change would take forever. So the world changes, and every single person that we've convinced to go for it, and I've literally drugged some customers kicking and screaming to get the automatic tool changer on their new machine, came back later every time and said, I don't know how I did without it. But you just don't know what you don't know until you realize that you don't know it. So
yeah. We did I say just because it feels like but we did that video with you guys. That was probably well over a year ago now. So, but we designed the file. I asked you and you're like, yeah, just bring any file. And I was like, I don't think you understand. We've never done this before, right? Like, I don't know what I need to bring you. So we're just going to make this up. And I gave them the file, and his initial response was like, oh, this is difficult. And I said, what you mean is this is a bad file, right? That's what you want to say, but you're not going to say it to me. And I think we did 5 or 6 tool changes to get that file done. Yep. And just like the difference in those was in my head, I'm like, I don't know, it's kind of all the same, right? We're doing king color core, right? So we're routing it, we're cutting the outsides, we're doing everything, V-groove it. And not the greatest file for it, but without the tool change, that would have been impossible. Yeah.
It would have took a long time.
Yeah. Because what you're talking about is basically a customer is choosing to use a smaller tool because they don't want to change it. So they need detail in some parts, but they're forced to use that small tool for the bigger parts because they don't want to change it.
And vice versa. They're compromising both. So they're trying to find the best medium between the two. And you get it, you get results, you get it, but is it the best product you could put out? No. And with a tool changer, you could put it out in no time at all with no downside, but now you get all this upside. So
yeah. To get an idea for what we're talking about with that, if you watch the video we did and you see us do all the super fine text that we do. So I don't know what size bit we're using for that. And then we immediately switch that to cutting the outside of the sheet. And I don't know how fast it cuts it. We're doing those were 2x3s, and I bet it cut it
name tags.
That was a different one. The name tag's the same thing, but the sign we did for
down in Florida. Or
Anna Maria Island.
Can you link to it here?
Yeah, somewhere on the screen. Yeah. It'll just point. It'll be in the thing. It'll be in the bottom or on the top. I don't know.
Somewhere.
We'll go put it somewhere.
One of these spots.
Yeah. We've linked this video 3 times already in this podcast, so it's kind of funny. But the sign we did, so the outside, we did the whole 2x3 sign, and it must have been 5 seconds. If you watch in the video, we play it literally in slow motion because you can see the chips spitting out the machine. It's running so fast the vacuum couldn't even vacuum them up. We were just shooting them all over the floor. Yep. Luckily, it was at your facility, so we have to.
We have to clean it up.
Yeah, we were just ripping them. But if we'd had a smaller bit, that would have taken forever to do the outside. We'd have run it real slow all the way around the edge,
and it would have looked terrible because you're deflecting. So the larger the tool, the more stable it is. Which that leans into you just said that you did the podcast with Josh from X-Edge. That's another piece of that. I keep looking up at the car behind you because it's a perfect analogy. The tires, the transmission, the engine, all of it. Tooling is another big part of that. You can have a perfect machine in every aspect, and you put junk tooling in there, or junk software, or even you program it terribly because you're not listening to people, what they're telling you, or the proper people, or whatever. All those pieces, when they're in line, you make a beautiful product. But if you skimp in any of those, or you could become bullheaded on one part of it, dive for cheap tooling. I see that a lot. People will spend a lot of money on a machine and purchase junk tires.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't make sense.
They're buying bits on Amazon.
Oh my
I have no
gosh.
idea who the manufacturer is. We literally talked about it in the almost this exact conversation we talked about in the XH, which is awesome. So if you haven't seen that episode, you should go watch it because we had the exact same conversation.
Probably linked.
We're running, it's in the cloud somewhere. It's like an anonymous location. We'll link it in the description somewhere. You can find it. But same conversation, right? There's companies just importing them. They have no idea on the quality. They'll tell you what it's made of, but even sometimes that's not 100% accurate either.
Correct.
And there's no repercussions, right? If it's coming in, they don't care. There's going to be no support. They're just like, this is cheap. It'll work.
Yeah.
And it probably will work. When you put it on there and you run the first cut, you're going to be like, this is sweet. It works. The problem is,
Second time it doesn't work.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the same with blades, right? Like eventually you're just running into a situation where the tool is dying so quickly and you're just not paying attention to it. And you're 8 sheets in and your first sheet looks awesome. And your 8th sheet's like, probably could have been better. And you're just passing out the door anyways.
Yeah.
And they're doing that on both ends, right? On equipment and on bits. So the question I had on here was what we just kind of talked about. So auto tool change is one of the features that I think a lot of people tell themselves they don't need because they don't want to spend the money, but end up needing it. Is there other features if we're talking about people upgrading equipment, right? They have maybe a lower end version and they're like, hey, we're kind of needing more. What are some features that people maybe overlook or might need that they don't know they need in an upgraded machine?
Yeah, that's an easy one. Every single time, the least sexy thing to purchase is vacuum, as in the hold down. Nobody wants to spend money on it. In fact, I see most salesmen, they don't go far into that because it's a hard thing to explain to somebody. Situations like if you can put 2 vacuum pumps next to each other and one of them's 17 horse, one of them's 25 horse. And in our brains, especially being Americans and loving horsepower, we just go, it's, so that's a little bit more than the other. And I'd say, okay, so 35, 40% maybe at best you might get out of it. But you have to really look under the hood. When it comes to vacuum, there's inches of mercury, horsepower, and CFM. Which one of those you need depends on what you're doing. And in nested base, like nested base manufacturing, which is what we're talking about here, most of the time, what you're doing, you don't want pure high pressure where you got to tape off the edges. And I'm sure you guys have seen it on a lot of the machines that are out there, the Gerbers or other ones. They'll put high pressure pumps on there because you can get a really good price on them. There's a lot of our competitors that just team up with them and say, okay, we're going to get the volume really high to drive that price down. Then the downside is you got to tape everything and you have to make sure there's no open spots and things like that. Or the other end, regenerative blowers. They work. They're good, and we still sell them sometimes to today. But they're very low cost, and they do okay. So it's an area where almost every time if somebody is going from an existing machine to a new one, I always ask them, how do you feel about your part holding? Do you have trouble holding small parts? These kinds of things. And then I explain to them the difference and why that big cost and for those few horsepower, because that's what it looks like is just a few different horsepower, but it's really much more than that. It's a big jump in cost, but here's why there's an ROI for it. And most of the time they understand it, and most of the time they wind up going with the better pump. But the ones that don't, they almost always come back later and say, wish I would have, instead of tabbing everything and taping down stuff, screwing down things. I'd say that's the biggest one for sure.
What about dust collecting?
Yeah.
That comes into play as well.
It does. Yep.
And does Specialty have a source for that? Or okay.
Yep. We have a few different dust collection options. Yep.
Okay.
And it varies depending on which machine, because how big of the opening, how far away the dust collector needs to sit from the machine, and what you're typically cutting. So if you're cutting aluminum, you're cutting a lower velocity chip and a heavier chip. So the chip is going to leave the cut at a little bit slower velocity and be heavier and harder to pull than say a lighter dust chip or like the King Color Core chip. So everything that you're cutting is a little different. So with each one, we usually look at all the facts, look at everything, and propose a couple of different options depending on that. Yeah.
Okay. I want to backtrack a little bit about service because we always want to talk about that. Now, do you service in the U.S. or where are you how far do you service from your location currently right now?
Yep. For multicams, our territory is Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Arkansas, North Carolina, South Carolina. I think I got them all there.
Okay.
And we cover those areas for service. Outside of the multicam with the Kimlas and the specialty cutting systems, we're all of North America.
Okay.
So we've installed machines in Arizona and East Coast, West Coast, South, North, Canada. All over the place.
Okay. Yeah. And that's training as well. So basically, installation training is done by your...
Correct. That's one thing I'm glad you brought up, just because I sometimes forget that most people don't, that not everybody does this, but we will not sell a machine without installation and training. Good. So it's automatic. It comes with it. So we install the machine, we train you on it, and we don't put a number of days on it. What the majority of our competitors do is you'll typically, if you look at the proposal, you'll see a number of days of install and training, and it'll say $1,000 a day or $1,500 a day extra or whatever for additional days, and they might negotiate in the end and say, I'll throw in an extra day of installation and training or whatever. We don't do it that way. It's typically 3 to 5 days for install and training, but we're there until we're comfortable that you know what you're doing and you're comfortable that you know what you're doing. And then we come back a week later or 2 weeks later and spend another full day with you, because you don't know what you don't know until you realize you don't know it. And it really, that's been a huge thing that this has evolved over many years, all this thoughts and ideas and how we approach service. And this has really worked out well, because most of the time customers are ready to run on their own far before they realize they are, and far before they're willing to let you go. But when they know you're coming back, they're like, okay, it's not, hey, he's gone out of here and I'm done. So that's worked out really well. They felt comfortable. And then when we come back, they're ready for 102 stuff. Like, hey, I know how to do this now. What if I want to do this? What if I want to do that? Or sometimes they just want to hang out and brag about all the cool stuff they made. And if that's what it is, and we're hanging out all day long, eating lunch together and just making stuff on the machine. So that's worked out well, and we're going to continue to do that.
Good.
I think what people don't realize with that model is if you aren't doing that model, the rest of your team is suffering for it. And what I mean by that is if you can offload, right? You're like, okay, if you don't want training, we're not going to force you to take it, right? Yeah. It's cheaper. So I dealt with this when we were in sales, when someone would ask about, like roll and install and delivery, right? And I would be like, we always do it. And they were like, why? Like, if we already know, and be like, if you already have a machine, right, you're getting a second one, that's a different conversation. But if it's new and you're just like, no, we just don't want to pay for we're going to pick it up. We don't want to install and training, whatever. I said, the problem is if you say no, I said, we're going to bill you every time you call. Yeah. Because what's going to happen is you're going to end up calling us 15 times. And our tech's going to have to stop and walk you through something that takes 2 or 3 times as long to walk someone over the phone than it does to do it in person, right? Like if I'm trying to show you something on the menu and I have to be like, okay, press down 2 times and press right. What are you on? Okay, nope, you're back. Go back. Yeah. Let's do it again. Versus if we were there, we would have just showed you that. It would have taken us 2 seconds to be like, go here. It's easy. And so if you don't make them take the training, often your customer service just ends up suffering for it, because what they end up doing is taking every single call. It's just call after call after call. It's all small stuff, and it's not like to blame them because you don't know what you're doing. It's you just, like you said, you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And you might think you have it all down, but then when you get it in your hands, you're like, oh shoot, there's actually 10 questions that I have. And by the end of things, like even if you were talking, like if we build support hourly, which oftentimes we would have just made it right with you, whatever. But if you were paying hourly for it from whoever you got it from, you'll probably end up going over what the actual install fee would have been. So I think it's a lot just easier to just do the install up front. And I wish more people did it, because I think usually we just end up with a billion questions on the back end when they don't do it. So
well, that's what we're trying to limit.
Yeah, exactly.
We want you to produce, make money. We want to show you how to do it. Yeah. And do it right and just get it done. Yeah. Right.
And that also gives you an idea, like in terms of what Domingo's role, if you're on audio and I'm pointing at him, what Domingo's role here is in terms of bringing new product on. Like there's a reason we don't have like 12 router options, right? Exactly. And it's because we vet everybody that comes in, right? What we're not going to do is pass you off to somebody who's not going to service or take calls and all customer service and all that stuff. Like we want to make sure that if we pass off somebody and they end up with a router, that they're happy with it. And that's why we've stuck with you guys, is because if we
You're
do
right down the road.
yeah, one, it's easy.
There's another one.
Yeah. If it goes bad, we know where
We
to
know
find
where to
you.
go.
It's not
Yeah,
far.
yeah, we'll find you.
We're moving. I shouldn't have told you the new address.
But with that, like, if we pass it off to you, like, I don't think I've ever heard anything back.
Nope.
Like, and that's only a good thing, because eventually it will come back. Even if we don't do the service, eventually we'll hear about it. We just never do. Like, it just goes smooth every time. So it's like,
Well,
okay.
they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, we'd like to think so anyway.
Yeah.
You can't make everybody happy. You're going to get ones that are upset at times. It's one way or another. We're going to figure it out, get to a resolution.
Well, that's good. That's good.
I think that pretty much covers it. We covered a lot of. I'm sure we could do a very deep dive on.
You didn't ask me
routers.
about food.
Oh,
I thought you were gonna ask
I
me
was going to
about
say,
food.
whoa,
It's
yeah.
even
You know
on the
what?
form.
It's not even on the form, or is it on the form?
It says.
I
Well, you
heard-
do shows, right? You do a lot of shows. You
Yeah, oh,
travel,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
You go to Vegas. You do all the shows.
Yep, New Orleans,
So the
Vegas,
question is, what's your favorite food and what location? Because as we always say, there's something that we are missing. We know we're missing, but maybe there's an
are.
opportunity there. So what's the town?
Yeah.
What's the place?
I'll tell you, there's this little place in Dorr, Michigan. It's my wife's kitchen. My wife is by far the greatest cook I have ever come across, and that's my favorite place to eat. I've eaten a lot of good foods, different countries, different places. Love New Orleans, love eating there. Love Vegas, lots of good food there. The Tao, Peking duck for two, very, very good. But nothing beats my wife's cooking, and I'm not just saying that to kiss up.
Well,
and
I
she's
guess-
hot too, so I'm really lucky.
I guess we have a dinner date tonight at 7:00 at your house.
I heard.
I RSVP'd.
She gets mad at me because I don't like eating in front of people unless they're eating too. So even if the chimney sweep is there or whatever, I'm like, come on, sit down. They eat with us because I can't. The cable guy, whatever. She's like, oh, okay. Some guy came to buy my pool table off Facebook Marketplace. He sat down and ate with us.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he did wind up giving me a whole bunch of venison for free though, like 50 some pounds of venison.
there you go.
Yeah, so it works out.
It all paid out in the end.
Yeah.
And I guess, hold on, we forgot another question. Kids? Do you have
Yes.
any kids? How old?
I have 3 beautiful children, Aaliyah, Haley, and Jai. Aaliyah just turned 14, Haley just turned 12, and Jai just turned 9.
All right.
I can tell you right now that before you have kids and you really, really want smart and gorgeous kids, you don't. They're gorgeous children. They're super smart, and it worries me all the time. I would much rather have them ugly and dumb. Nobody would buy it. It's just like having a dog. I always wanted a smart one and good-looking smart dog. No, I want a dumb, ugly dog. They don't know they can leave. Nobody will steal them. Life's perfect.
Doesn't I think it's Aziz Ansari does a whole skit about he was an adorable kid. He doesn't understand how he didn't get kidnapped, and it's a hilarious bit where he's like, He's like, I look at my pictures as a kid. I thought, how did I not get kidnapped? He said, you see how adorable I am?
Oh my God, I gotta look that up.
That's a whole bit on its own. But yeah, sweet. So that covered everything we want to do. The question we always end on is, if you look at specialty machinery, what do you think sets you apart from your competitors in the market?
Based on this whole conversation, I got to say it's service, no matter what. It's our knowledge is huge in there. I think there are a lot of salesmen out there that know enough to sell. But as vice president of the company, I started in service. Our president, Robert B. Priestis, started as a service tech. The guy next in line after me, Tim Harrison, I hired him as a service tech, and he was a multicam operator prior to that. So we really, from the core of the company, everything about it is service and knowledge of product. And at the end of the day, we're just trying to put the best ROI together for you and make it an easy ride, and we all celebrate in the end.
Well, it's perfect.
It's a win-win.
Yeah. We didn't go through the whole product catalog, which we could probably do another episode with you at some point.
Yeah,
Go
later
through
down
some
the
more
road.
specifics and really get down for people that are into routers and know and are looking at what could be a
kind
good
of
future
options
for
there
them. But right now, if you're looking at a router, obviously reach out to us at Wensco. We can get you in touch and make sure that you get the right equipment for the job. So we appreciate you coming out.
I appreciate
Luckily
you guys. It's
thank
one
you,
bourbon
Jimmy.
short of my ideal Friday night. This is
that's perfect.
one bourbon and a political argument. And
Yeah,
that's all we
that'd
need.
been
And
perfect.
Hold on.
it'd be my ideal. Yeah.
So we appreciate it. Luckily, again, this is another one where luckily the drive for you is not terrible. So,
Yeah, exactly.
we keep running into this where our vendors are not actually that far from here, which is kind of surprising, but appreciate you coming out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you next time. So thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.